Good morning, First Christian Church and friends. It is wonderful to be together again today as we continue our journey through the Gospel according to Mark. Hey, here is a thought for you. Have you had to stand up for yourself in order to prove your faith? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in order to prove your faith? Here is, in some level, the ultimate test of hospitality and welcome and proving yourself. Jesus encounters a woman whose daughter is sick, but the woman is an outsider, and Jesus challenges her standing to receive what she asks of Jesus based on her outsider status. But the woman's response doesn't just surprise Jesus. The woman's response surprises us all, but it also gives us a sense sometimes of our own experiences or the experiences of people we love when they encounter the church. And it's a test not just of our faithfulness to be able to stand up for ourselves when we're challenged, but it's a test of the church's hospitality and whether or not it will welcome whoever seeks God. Let's just read the story and let's have a conversation. Mark 7, verses 24 to 37 from the Message. Jesus is traveling, doing ministry. From there, Jesus set out for the vicinity of Tyre, that's up in Lebanon, north of Israel. You've been watching the news this morning. You have an idea of where Lebanon is. He entered the house there where he didn't think he would be found, but he could not escape notice. Jesus was barely inside when a woman whose daughter was disturbed, the woman heard where Jesus was, and she came and knelt at his feet, begging for help. Now the woman was Greek, Syrophoenician by birth, an outsider, not part of the religious community in Israel, not a resident of the area, a foreigner. And yet she came to Jesus, asking him to cure her daughter. And Jesus said, how's this for an answer from Jesus even? Stand in line and take your turn. The children get fed first. If there's any left over, then the dogs get it. And she said, of course, Master, but don't dogs under the table get scraps dropped by the children? Here's an understatement. Jesus was impressed. You're right. On your way. Your daughter is no longer disturbed. Her affliction is gone. And the woman went home and found her daughter relaxed on the bed, the torment gone for good. The torment gone for good. Just to reinforce, there's another story. Jesus left the region of Tyre, went through Sidon, back to Galilee. So going back south through Lebanon and back into what's now understood to be part of Israel. So went back to Galilee Lake and over to the district of the 10 towns. And some people brought a man who could neither hear nor speak and asked Jesus to lay a healing hand on him. So he took the man off by himself, put his fingers in the man's ears, and some spit on the man's tongue. Then Jesus looked up in prayer, groaned mightily, and commanded, Ephphatha, open up! And it happened. The man's hearing was clear and his speech plain, just like that. Jesus urged them to keep it quiet, but they talked it up all the more, beside themselves with excitement. He's done it all and done it well. He gives hearing to the deaf and speech to the speechless. Thanks be to God. We all find ourselves in situations where we have to stand up for ourselves in order to prove ourselves worthy of service, help, hospitality. And it's sad. Honestly, it is sad. It is sad that A church that understands its standing before God as something that comes not because we are worthy, but out of God's graciousness, that we would then turn around and expect other people who are on the outside of our community to prove themselves worthy before we will welcome them in. It is as if we completely miss the point of what God has been doing in the world and what the mission of Jesus of Nazareth has always been. And yet in this story, many through the years have read this and considered it a time where actually Jesus himself had to have his attitude toward outsiders corrected. The children first, then the strangers and foreigners. Dogs was as much of an ethnic slur as almost the worst ones that we can think of that get said in our day and time today. And yet here it is, on the tongue, in the mouth of Jesus. And we're challenged by that. How is it possible that the one that the church has proclaimed to be the perfect Lord of heaven and earth, the Son of God, the incarnation of the deity, fully God and fully human at the same time, that this person would need to be corrected? And then we take a deeper look in terms of the testing that's going on here and what's really happening with the woman Jesus is encountering. It's not that might not be true. Jesus may have needed to be corrected in this moment. He might have been caught up in his identity as the Messiah of the people of Judea and Samaria, the people of Israel. And this woman presents herself and reminds him, no, you came for everyone, not just the insider group. So enough to think about just for that. But the response of the woman, even as an outsider, being treated as an outsider, with Jesus playing gatekeeper rather than welcome party, still expresses and declares her faith, but also her hunger for the power of God at work in the life of her daughter, her hunger for a closer and deeper relationship with God, her hunger to get to know this Jesus better, who she has at least some level of faith in, that he is the power to heal her daughter. And just in her plain spoken, non-intimidated, and courageous reply is greeted and celebrated and granted her request. And now there is a great and wonderful and beautiful testimony to give. Two things for us, depending on our place in this story. On the one hand, do we need corrected? I think it is clear through the ages, and some in our local communities and the church in its presence in the course of the world, it is very clear that the church is in deep need of correction exactly on this point, that Jesus came not just for those on the inside, but that Jesus came for everyone, and the welcome is for everyone. If one is cast aside and left out and excluded and barred, we all have reason to question our own welcome, our own reception, our own inclusion. And do we personally or congregationally need that correction as well? Do we open our arms wide for the sake of anyone who would be willing to come to seek Jesus, to be willing to be disciple, small d, to be a disciple, a student, an apprentice, a learner at the feet of Jesus? And if not, then we better become so very quickly. And on the other side, if we've been the one excluded because of who we are, if we are the ones on the outside because of our identity or our origin, and we are challenged to prove yourself worthy, may our response be as strong and courageous and faithful as this woman's was. The gospel message is for everyone, no exceptions, no exclusions, no ifs, ands, or buts. So what are we going to do about it? Amen.